8 members of the Delta Force, a vigilante group affiliated with the NPP, have been arrested by the Ashanti Regional Police.
Persons suspected to have aided their escape from the court premises have also been arrested and are presently in police custody.
The arrest follows the storming of the KMA court today to free members of their group who were facing charges for causing disturbances at the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council. Meanwhile, National Security Minister Albert Kandapa says government cannot disband such vigilante groups, explaining there are no such registered politically affiliated groups.
There is no legally registered vigilante group. So I don't know of any person who belongs to any such group.
So why has these vigilante groups become so powerful? Are we safe? Should we now hand security over to these forces? I mean, come to think that the police cannot bring these groups to order. Come to think of it, that government's hands are tied on disbanding them. Interesting. So whose responsibility is it to end these ferocious attacks? We'll be getting into the skin of the matter and bring you all the answers on today's big story. My name is Ashanti. The vigilante group almost assaulted the judge at the Kumasi Circuit Court, who had ruled that the suspects be remanded to appear before court on April 2017 after charges of conspiracy to assault a public officer and causing unlawful damage were slapped at them. The 13 were detained in connection with the group's raiding of the Regional Coordinating Council on March 24, 2017, where they were alleged to have assaulted the newly appointed Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, George Ejay. Now, the group also vandalized some court properties. Let's watch some sights and sounds recorded earlier from the court. Well, joining me in the studio to do this analysis is Dr. Franklin Biney, who is a security analyst. Good evening to you. Welcome on today's big story.
Good evening, Asha.
Doc, I'm not the least surprised about this, are you?
I'm not quite surprised equally, because what is going on is really, really disturbing as far as the economy and the governance of this country is concerned. Like the Minister of Interior or Ministry of Security just mentioned in the Parliament today, that indeed they are not registered. And even at all they are registered, there should be a code of ethics in managing them. So again, this background, if they are not registered, then the government of the day must look at it carefully and ensure that proper thing must be done in relation to the previous government or all the political parties are having similar groups. And what really, really disturbs me is that most of these groups, most of them are not having very good education. Most of them are not really groomed, and for just because there's no job, they get into that. And indeed, what they are doing is a threat to the security of this nation.
It's a threat to the security of this nation. Yeah. But let's now listen to the Ashanti Regional Police Commander on the very latest on this matter.
Today, April 6, 2017, 13 accused persons of the Delta Force members appeared before the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly KMA Circuit Court, presided over by Her Worship Mary Senche. They were remanded into prison custody to reappear before the court on April 20, 2017. Their lawyers pleaded for bail, but was declined by the sitting circuit court judge. Their supporters, on hearing this, moved into the court premises, and in the process, all the 13 accused persons escaped through the back door used only by the judge. The bench warrant has therefore been issued for their arrest. Meanwhile, 8 persons suspected to have aided their escape from the court premises have also been arrested and are presently in police custody.
All right, that was the Ashanti Region Police Commander speaking on that issue. But Doc, it's amazing that we're still finding ourselves here, especially when the president himself has condemned this act. One would have thought that we should move on from
Precisely. The president has spoken, but then the law must be applicable, because the president himself is a lawyer. Most of his members of the governance are lawyers. I believe by now they should know. And then the state police, which is responsible for this kind of mitigation of this situation, must be able to be on the ground. Then already, I remember the president has made it categorically straight that they should go, IGP, go ahead and ensure that whoever, no matter the kind of party that he comes from, ensure that the law becomes applicable. And this says, so why is it that the police are not really being on the ground? And look at what happened right now at work, at the court, unheard of. Unheard of in what? In jurisdiction of the country, you know, exercising its mandate, and people out there. That means the system is broken down, and it needs really immediate repairs and reorganization and restructuring. As far as the judiciary is concerned, for that a judge will sit in his seat, and then these people will go there. Now, this force, let me draw you back a little bit. You see what is happening in Nigeria. We see. It was not only the Boko Haram just came one day and they just woke up.
Out of the blues.
Not at all. But then see, it started from 1980 with the group, not Boko Haram, right. Mr. Tani. So many groups have come before that kind of, but you see, they were not sustainable because of certain factors.
Right.
But the Boko Haram became sustainable because of the factors were very, very, favorable for them and became sustainable. And above all, they were behind. Some political parties, some gurus were behind. And then there were some other venues that they were getting money from to be very strong. This is how they started. It was not one day. And eventually, most of them are not educated. Most of them are having no jobs. So they were coopted in, and they have money to give it to them to be excited. And this is how it starts. And before we know, but the one thing I want us to know, and I really draw the attention of the state, the Ministry of, the Minister of National Security,
right,
is that some time ago, I heard one member was saying that, look, we're going to rope them into the national security agencies, that's concerning the police, the army, and all of them. Fine. These people, they are claiming that they have really contributed in their work, in their development to come to power. So just for the boys. But I'm warning as well, if they do that, those who are dedicated and gone through the right process of really recruitment will one day be what? Will be retiring.
Will be set aside.
Good. You'll be retiring. Right. When they retire, of course, these people who were brought in from nowhere, no background, will take over. And when they take over, what do they know? Then means we, the citizenry, are going to be subject to, I don't know, kind of rule or kind of protection we're going to have. Having the known that these people are coming from a background of nothing, no background check, no qualification, no experience, no orientation, no passion for security.
No security training, nothing at all.
So that we will be sitting on a time bomb.
It's rather unfortunate that the Minister for National Security is saying that
he has come out clear.
Government can't disband these groups. Reason? There are no such registered groups, or there are no legally registered political groups such as that one.
Right.
I think we should listen to the minister on this, and then we can continue.
There is no legally registered vigilante group. So I don't know of any person who belongs to any such group. But of course, it is not possible that the national security agencies will absorb into the agencies anybody who has a criminal background. Security checks are undertaken, criminal checks are undertaken to make sure that everybody who is employed into the national security system has passed the necessary security and criminal checks. And again, I want to emphasize, we must try not to politicize the security agencies, and we commit ourselves to doing just that. Mr. Speaker, once an incident has been investigated by the police and the law enforcement agencies, and they have determined or established that crime has been committed, the necessary sanctions are applied. In this case, after the investigations, if it is established by the police that some criminal actions did take place, those who were responsible for those actions will certainly be sanctioned in accordance with the laws of the country, and they will not be spared only because they belong to a particular political party.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minority Leader.
So that was Minister for National Security, Albert Kandapa, stating clearly the plans to deal with this. But interestingly, he said there are no such registered groups.
That's right.
And so he doesn't know any member who he can point to and say this is a member of a vigilante group. But we know of their existence.
Exactly. But interestingly, when he says so, related also to the other political parties, they will say, oh, they are not registered. But then they are existing, they know them. Practically on the ground, they know that they are there. You see, in all countries around the globe, we have political parties existing and we practice, but then they have what is called close protection officers. And this is the security kind of way they train them, they orient them, they set them to the scrutiny, and then they are disciplined. They don't behave the way we are doing it as vigilante group or something like that. So they have them and taking care of the very senior men or the political leaders in their various political parties, and then they go up and down. You will not even know that they are the security operatives within them there. Okay. Well dressed and neatly dressed, and then they are disciplined, they are cautious, they have code of ethics. There are many things that you will not even know, but when you misbehave, they will apprehend you and hand you over to the state police to act on that. Right. So they are really well organized. Come down to our own. All political parties, even a Kredonko's party has what?
Vigilante group. Interesting.
It's there. They are aware.
Right.
So if the Minister of State today says, look, they are not aware, well, from one angle, because they are not registered, then why then? It's not only the ruling party, the other parties have the same.
The opposition party.
So what must be done? The way forward is what is important. If you have come to really come out to say that, look, we don't know any registered and organized, and then let's put it behind us and see the way forward, because time is not on our side as far as security of this country is concerned.
Well, after the minister made these comments, some MPs are certainly not happy with this. I think we should listen to some MPs from the minority side expressing their concern over his explanation.
Vigilante groups everywhere don't get registered legally, but they are facts on the ground. They exist on the ground. People see them, perceive them, encounter them. And they pose security threats. And that's why the National Security Minister was invited to deal with the potential security threats that these de facto vigilante groups, which exist in all the regional capitals and who somehow have affinity to the ruling government,
and possibly the NDC as well.
And possibly the NDC as well, to be disbanded.
What do you make of his argument that he's making? No such groups to be disbanded because they are no legally registered.
He's been put in a difficult situation. He was skirting the issue. Because even before we went into the 2016 elections, those vigilante groups played a very significant role in determining the center of power within the MPP. When the invincible forces engaged with the Bolgatanga Bulldogs at the MPP headquarters in the full glare of the public. Okay? Now, that legitimized the victors, the action of the victors, who incidentally are the invincible forces.
Looks like you're politicizing it, which is actually one of the issues that the minister raised and said we should desist from doing that.
No, I'm not politicizing, I'm just stating the facts.
But would you admit that such a group exists within your party, the NDC, as well? Would you admit that?
It's just like asking me whether the minister should go and disband such groups within the NDC. Today, the question that we are asking is what will happen to the invincible forces, to the Bolgatanga Bulldogs, and to the Delta forces? That's what we're asking.
So the response that the minister gave...
And the persons who have responsibility to deal with the issues are those in government today. It will be out of place to throw a red herring into the question and allow us to swallow the red herring.
So are you satisfied with the kind of response that he gave? Because this question was very specific, that what will be done to disband the groups, and then he says there is no one to disband.
Definitely, that's what I'm saying. I'm definitely not satisfied with the answer. And definitely I'm appalled by attempts to throw dust into the eyes of the discerning public.
So that was Inus Hussaini, a member of parliament for Tamale Central. He's a member of the minority in parliament. Joining me on the phone is Sam George, who is member of parliament for Ningo Pram Pram. Good evening to you, Honorable. Thanks for your time on today's big story.
Hi, good evening.
Well, the Minister for National Security says government can't disband vigilante groups. Because of what? He says there are no such legally registered groups. I guess this should bring a closure to the outcry that such groups should be dispersed.
So let me say a very good evening to our listeners here. It's sad hearing the response that was given by the Minister for National Security today. He's one person I have enormous respect for, but clearly today he chose to be politically correct. I do not think that ISIS or Al-Qaeda or Boko Haram or Al-Shabaab is a legally registered agency in any of the countries or countries where they operate. And so that answer lacks a lot in substance. It clearly was a very evasive way of not addressing a very rampant issue. We are faced with the story this evening of the attack on the judiciary by one of such groups that he was asked directly a question about this morning. If our government is not willing to put political correctness away and do what is right in the interest of the nation, we can only say a prayer for our country. There are very sad times we live in where nobody is spared. I mean, if those who are high and mighty are falling prey to the almighty, the force of the Delta forces, and what then happens to the ordinary Ghanaian citizen? I mean, a regional national security coordinator couple was attacked. Now you have a judge being attacked. And you see, it's also instructive to know that the impunity with which this group acted, that there is some level of impact given to them by some people behind the scenes to carry out their actions. Because you need to have a certain level of bravado or an extreme level of stupidity, forgive my Greek, to attack a judge or to go and attack a regional security coordinator. There's something missing somewhere. Again, you realize that this attack only happened after comments have been made by His Excellency the President. His Excellency the President during the State of the Nation's address told us that he condemned the actions of the evil forces and that he was going to clamp down on them. The following week, after he made those comments in Parliament, we saw them go on a rampage in Tamale. We saw them attack the regional security coordinator in Kumasi. This past week, His Excellency the President was in Kumasi again and told to Ashanti that he was going to clamp down on the Delta forces. Then today you have this. Something just doesn't add. And for me as a lawmaker, it is worrying that as a nation, it appears that we are helpless. Our laws cannot protect us.
It will be dangerous, I guess, to leave it as it is now. So what are you and your colleagues going to do about this in your capacity as members of parliament?
I'm aware that leadership of the minority is going to be the media very soon on this matter, and making the definite position of the minority known. Parliament is going to be rising tomorrow. It will be almost impossible at this point in time to get an urgent question in again, because I mean the Minister for National Security was in Parliament this morning to answer a question on this matter. This goes beyond Parliament. Parliament law enforcing powers. It's the executive. Somebody must take responsibility. This is a country that has a Minister for National Security, has a Minister for Interior, has a Minister for Defense, has a National Security Advisor, has a National Security Coordinator. My goodness. We're not a nation at war, but we have 5 security heads.
All right. Many thanks to you. Honorable Sam George is Member of Parliament for Nkrumah. We appreciate your time on today's big story. But the IGP has also been speaking, and he's worried there's breakdown of law and order. My colleague Raymond Ofori has been speaking with the IGP. He joins me in the studio. Raymond, what we need now is beyond sharing sympathy or sympathizing with the situation. How has the IGP been explaining this situation to you?
First and foremost, he says that they did not anticipate that these huge numbers will be there. They provided 20 police officers for the 13 who are supposed to be put before the court today, plus the ordinary security officials who are always at the court. The understanding was that this was a number good enough to provide the security required to keep these people safe and to keep the court safe. But they were overwhelmed by the huge numbers that throw on the place, now set them free. What they are going to do right away is issuing of bench warrants for the arrest of the 13 first. They are also immediately going to look for every other person who was there and participated in this act. Already, he hints they've arrested 8 of them, and they are going to continue this particular crackdown. The Interior Minister was more boisterous with his actual talk on this particular matter. He believes that no matter what happens, so far as he remains minister, if it requires he calling on the military to come to the aid of the police in this matter, they'll put all security forces together to make sure that they arrest, prosecute, and shoot to a logical conclusion in this particular matter.
All right, this very soothing news coming from the powers that be that's supposed to be responsible for dealing with this matter. But Doc, more worrying is the fact or the directive that the police should handle this matter. Isn't it obvious that the police is overwhelmed with this situation? For instance, at the court today, you look at the impunity with which these forces act in the court, the house of law. That's interesting.
Actually, I was listening to my brother here. I was thinking that the police haven't even experienced what happened on that day of the security coordinator being appointed to the Ashanti region. What really happened that day should be indeed a really background for them, therefore, against this day when they were going to the court, to really prepare. Their intelligence must be put together to know that, no, this is what we have got. And therefore, when we're going, well, how can you tell me that you're going with, what, 13? Did you say?
20 police officers
plus
the station officers.
Well, to me,
that's unacceptable.
Unacceptable, because you have got an experience which gives you a leading intelligence gathered. Therefore, when you are going for another exercise, of course, you must really be beefed up and be prepared and be pushing up. And knowing the background, the nature, the characteristics of the kind of forces that you are dealing with.
Doc, what's the implication of this? Because we all are scared of the court, and when it comes to the court, we know that, look, you can't mess around with the court. These people have set the pace. You don't think other people will follow?
That's where the judiciary, the police, the law enforcement agencies must put their feet down. The Minister of Interior, the National Security, like he mentioned, all must really step down to put down their feet down to ensure that that judiciary, the arm of government, will not be broken. It cannot be accepted. So that really they will make sure that it will be highly protected. It also goes for the further for us to understand that this is the time they have to really strengthen security at the what?
At the court.
At the courts.
Right.
Very well. And the CCTV cameras must be all both human security and electronic system security must be in place. Alarm system. This must be really advanced in technology in our court system with this kind of experience that we've had so far. It's a ringing bell, and it's really ringing bell of what is to come. And we don't have to sit down for it to come or happen to cause a nation. Because when things like that happens, it costs. When you put it in the word, in analysis of what finance or money, you see that it goes into the coffers of the state. We have to really come up with money to take care of all these military men, we're going to policemen, their wear and tear, their vehicles, the fueling. It's also affect the economy's parts. So really we have to look at it carefully. And this is the time that we must clamp down this issue, and not
before
only
it
this,
gets out of hand.
and not only this but every political that become, if it's possible, they can really pass a bill to make it a law, and then nothing of that nature
will ever exist.
Exactly.
All
so
right.
that we might
Many thanks to you, Raymond Ofori, and many thanks to you, Dr. Baini, for passing by. We're extremely grateful for your time. This is today's big story. We've been talking about vigilante groups, especially the one affiliated to the NPP. And we've had all the assurances from the Interior Minister, the IGP, and the Minister for National Security. We're monitoring. We'll bring you all the updates. My name is Ashanti Ibrahim. Enjoy the rest of our programs.